Thank you very much, everyone, for staying this one through. This is the grand finale. So it's been a really awesome conference for me, and we've heard an awful lot about the waste creation opportunities from resource recovery, and, of course, about the need for good data to inform that business decision-making. Well, I'm really pleased to be closing the conference by launching some really exciting work that we've been doing in the commercial and industrial space with the Better Buildings Partnership. So this guide I'm going to take you through was designed predominantly for offices, but it's also a framework which is relevant for large and small business, for hotels, retail, and more. And if anybody wants to get on board, it will help us to create a large and more consistent data set to inform industry development. So the Better Buildings Partnership is an initiative of the City of Sydney. It's an industry collaboration of leaders who are committed to the city's vision, which is predominantly around a 70% emissions reduction. And all of the major institutional owners like AMP, Stockland, Investor, GPT, Mirvac, Brookfield, Lendlease, those kind of guys, have all signed up to participate in that program. They control about $107 billion worth of assets across Australia, so it's significant, across retail, commercial and industrial. And they control 2.5 million square metres of the Sydney CBD. We also, in the programme, have all the big property management companies, the Property Council of Australia, the Green Building Council of Australia and the Office of Environment and Heritage. So essentially the BBP exists to tackle the challenges that can't be solved by one of those companies moving individually. So we collect the available wisdom, we consult widely with industry, and we try to create a consistent approach to unpick some of the systemic challenges that we all face. We call the model collective impact. We have a highly consultative process. When we take on a new issue, we like to kind of do a market review, look at existing industry best practice, identify some of the issues and gaps that might be holding us back, and fill those, sense checking with industry as we go. And then we want to deliver really practical tools, and then to help build the evidence base ongoing so that we know that we're doing the right thing and that we're moving forward. So the targets of the BBP, as I said, are around a 70% emissions reduction. And as we set more plans, we're fine-graining a lot of those targets. But when we come to waste, it's very challenging because we actually don't have the data and the consistency to even make a start. So we've got New South Wales targets, but we want to build an evidence base so that we can start to really drive and exceed those with our members. So let's play a game. Who has the most waste? This is a game that quite a lot of you play a fair bit and will probably identify with this. So Gary and Barry both run 40,000 square metre office buildings. And they pay vastly different sums for their waste. So how do we begin to work out who has the most waste? Well, Gary's old school. His contractors come once a week. They collect 342 240-litre bins. 64% of them are blue, contain paper for recycling, 13% are red for landfill, 23% are co-mingled. Barry's contractors also come once a week, and he weighs his waste on site, and his contractors collect 4.6 tonnes, of which half a tonne is landfill, about a tonne is organics, 0.3 is co-mingled, and 3 tonnes of paper, and he's clearly paying much less. So how do we begin to establish who has got the most waste? So it seems simple, but as we all know, it's very far from that. In order to be able to answer the question, what we need to know is, where's the building? How many waste streams are they collecting? What contamination checks are they doing, and are they on the floor or the dock? How full are the bins when they're lifted? What's the density to weight conversion that Gary's using? What facility are they sending to? What's the recovery rate of the facility? What proportion of the loads are rejected? And how confident is Barry in his own systems? It's a nightmare. So that's the problem we are seeking to solve. In comes the hero. But we actually need the ordinary hero. And in fact, we need a whole bunch of people moving collectively together. So the main problem for us when we came in is data. So the municipal contractors, we've heard, are the really key ones for the facilities and the contractors. So even though each of my members have a significant number of assets, in individuals, they don't have an awful lot of influence over the market. And my members are very hungry for data. The contractors either don't have it or they find it difficult to provide. And when they do, it's still only one source of data. And to be robust, of course, we need to triangulate that for a bit more accuracy. Right now, that's done with an on-site audit. But these point-in-time audits can also be expensive, and they're not necessarily robust enough to base long-term decision-making on for my businesses. And all of this compounds to mean that there's no energy bill for data. It's impartial, fact-based, the same from site to site, and importantly, from state to state and facility to facility. And it's been holding the neighbours' waste tool back for a long time. And then the other point to make is that we can't push things up the hierarchy if we don't know what's happening at each level. So we've produced a guide, and first of all, we did some consultation. We pulled together stakeholders, owners, cleaners, contractors, and facilities, and we asked them to tell us their challenges and their stories. For the cleaners, quite often it's that they tender at least cost. They say that they'll comply with the management requirements, and then they get hit with a whole bunch of more requirements over time that they simply haven't costed in. For the waste contractors, they want to provide reporting, but everybody wants something a little bit different, and that's a management overhead. For facilities, they want, as we've heard in the last 2 days, to be financing these new recovery facilities, but they need more insights about how much material we've got that they can actually base their own, substantial investment decisions on. And for the owners, they want somebody who's going to support their vision. So we collected the best practice contract terms that they were using. We collected their waste management plans. We compiled them together, did a gap analysis, and took some of the conversion factors that they use, which vary by an order of magnitude, and sometimes about a decade in age, I might add as well, and used the professional experience of our 22 members and their auditors to come up with mutually acceptable ones that were, bang up to date. We pulled all this together into a guide, and then we also created Excel sheets underneath it, so there's really practical tools that sit underneath of each of these. The focus of this document is, I should clarify, dock to facility for operational waste. We're now doing some more work looking at the whole desk to dock process, and we're also doing a whole bunch of work around office fit out. So the document is structured for skimmers, dippers, and divers. So you can dive in and use the whole thing from go to woe when you're establishing a new contract. Or you can dip in to troubleshoot a problem in an existing contract, or you can just skim your way through, and this is your slide if you're a skimmer. So we just wanted to kind of boil it down to the 10 steps of good practice. So number 1 is about specifying clear corporate outcomes. Now this seems really simple, but actually when we did the consultation, this was a relatively contentious issue, and predominantly the feedback that we got from the contractors is, we don't control or influence the amount of waste that your building creates or the amount of recycling, so we don't want to see that in the contract because we don't think it's appropriate to be held accountable. And that is, of course, fair. But if you don't specify what you're seeking to achieve, how can you possibly create the appropriate management systems that are going to help you manage that better? So we need to acknowledge that it's not within control, but also make sure that we're aligned so that we get the right outcomes. So number 2, developing the waste management plan. So that is the core document at the heart of every successful collaboration. Number 3 is about allocating clear roles and responsibilities. So we've talked again in the last few days about feedback mechanisms and accountabilities, and when you have problems in the system, who's communicating with who to get those fixes so that they don't roll out over time and cause frustration and angst between the parties. We think it's really important to agree on the fees for each of your waste stream and to nominate the facilities. Knowing your fees by stream will create a shared incentive for resource recovery all along the value chain. Number 6, using the coloured translucent bags. So, you know, and hit this really square. We've got a massive problem with black bin bags, and they're very difficult to do audits on because you can't see what's into them, and the cleaners don't want to touch them for good reason. So by using the colour-coded bags that you can see through, we're getting much better rates of recycling coming out of our office buildings. I think that's really important. We need to preference on-site weights over lifts and volume. We need to do good audit of our current practice and require periodic reporting by floor and by stream, and that way we can increase our engagement with the tenant population and drive down that, you know, the behaviours over time that are causing the rejection rates for us. We obviously need to rate and manage our data quality, and we've got an integrity matrix for that I'll take you through in a few slides to start to give a bit more of a nuanced confidence interval about the data that we're using to base our decisions on. And of course, contracting is not a set and forget, so we need mechanisms to continue to meet, to continue to improve our training and signage as we go along. So that's just another view of how you can use the document. And now I'll dip into some of it in a bit more detail for you. So from a procurement point of view, why do we structure this around procurement? Well, because guess what? You get what you pay for. There's no point nailing your contractors to the cross on price when what you're actually looking for is quality. If you need lots of monitoring and reporting, you need to let the contractor know at the point of tender, and if you don't be surprised and disappointed when you end up in conflict through the whole life of the contract. We need to make it clear who's expected to do what. High-end reporting is obviously not going to be right for everybody. This document is a framework. It's for contracting building owners to choose the level of service that is right for them, and for the waste and cleaning contractors to be able to demonstrate value add and differentiate themselves from competitors. One size doesn't fit all. If you're not sure and you're contracting, have a bet each way. When you go to quote, do you use your low-cost quote in the alternate solutions? That's the place where you might be adding some more of the value in order that you don't price yourself out. Material streams. So standard naming of streams seemed really obvious, but it's not. And when we came to be able to compare the recycling streams of our members, there are lots of nuanced things that are being done differently that prevented us being able to add together or compare between the sites. So it was really important to get a consistent set of streams and also the way they roll up one to another. So not all of our members use all of these. Some of our members report on 11 streams, some of them report on 2, but you can see how they fit together so that when we're reporting, we've got that comparability. The waste management plan, as I said, that's the backbone of the system. So it really sets out the process through the life of the contract, how the contractors and cleaners can plan, report on their transportation and the disposal of the waste in the building. It identifies the streams, it designates facilities, and that enables you to open that conversation with the facility about where's it's going, what's that recovery rate, and again, have that downstream conversation about are we getting the best value for money. And it includes information on contamination, management, and safety measures. In the tool, if you go to our website, we've included a whole bunch of Excel spreadsheets so that you can actually use these as operational tools. So you can look at the criteria we've identified, drop them into existing processes, or you can use them as a standalone. And then there's the regular reporting template. So again, what we found is our members were going out to their contractors, they're requesting enhanced reporting, and they were getting a little bit of pushback on that. And predominantly that's because there's an overhead to all of this, and everybody wants something slightly different. So what's really key for us is that all of our members will be using this standard reporting framework, and that means that the contractors are incentivized to create that because they know that it's going to be applicable for a whole bunch of their customers and not just one of them. That consistency obviously then provides them more data insights to be able to manage their business, and it also provides each of my members more ability to make nuanced decisions about how they might be able to reduce the contamination rates or to improve recycling, etc. I've spoken a bit about the responsibilities and KPIs, so just be really clear about what your outcomes are. If you're targeting waste reduction, knowing what floors, streams or tenants are dragging the chain is really important, so you need to build that into the system. Clear roles and responsibilities across the life of the project will give you much more functional relationships and cut down some of that conflict. And again, the pricing by stream really helps to drive you to highest and best use across the life, and that should be part of an ongoing collaboration through that contracting process. Data integrity. So transparency is really important, but actually, if you had to pick one thing, consistency is obviously key. So you need to be able to understand that the reports that you get from period to period and location to location are based on the same set of assumptions. Clearly, we would favour actual weights for each lift, where that's not available. That the annual audit will give site-specific densities for that particular asset that can be used. And where that's not available, as I said, we've recalculated those industry densities. The integrity matrix favours two independent sources of data. And so if you have two independent sources, you can get a gold rating. If you're just relying on invoices at the end of a quarter, you'd be down in the bronze or nominal. That enables us to provide a confidence interval or a discounting factor. And again, that can then be applied in a formulaic way to see how we're travelling and compare one to another. And neighbours and some of the third-party verification systems are very interested in the capacity of this matrix to be able to bring them closer to having data that they can rely on for ratings. So where are we up to? So as you can see, a lot of the pre-work's been done. I'm launching the guide today. I've got a couple of copies with me, or it's available on our website, which is betterbuildingspartnership.com.au. And ahead of us, what's left to do? So, as I said, the tool comes with a whole bunch of Excel spreadsheets that you can use right now. But some of the feedback from our members has been that actually what you need is an online tool that people can log into, because one of the challenges is version control and keeping that integrity of the data. So we're having some explorations at the moment about making some work that GPT has done, who are very much leaders in this space, available on an open source basis, so that the industry can have their contractors log in to track that data over time. And if people run data management services for the industry, I'd be very keen on connecting with you after the session. We're only just launching, but obviously we've been testing some of this stuff over time, and I'm really pleased to say that it's had a really good response from industry. GPT have been using these processes for a little while now. In some of their locations, they're reporting a 50% increase in their recycling rates, and they're taking about 10% out of their costs. Contractors that they've been working with, who were at first a little bit cautious about taking up the systems, are also really seeing the benefits as they realise that they can also plan and manage their business more effectively. And of course, in the future, we'll be engaging more with the third-party verification systems like Neighbours, Green Star, and the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark. So let's go back to our question from earlier. And of course, as you would probably guess, the answer is they both have exactly the same amount of waste. They're both generating 15 litres per person per week. The incredible difference in those numbers is driven by the lift, because each of those fees is based on assumes 100% full bins. If your bins are 50% full, you just doubled the price that you're paying. And if you then take a conversion factor, with those orders of difference, then you can double that again. So we're talking about a seriously material amount of money, and so we think that this work will be very popular with the industry. So what can you do? So promote it to your business networks. Really, what we're trying to do is give a tool set that everyone can use, so that we have a really consistent approach to market, and we can fine-grain the data over time, and it will only help all of us to recover resources better. So add the clauses to your C&I contracts, classify your streams consistently, and work with your facilities. And together, we can make everything awesome. Thanks very much.